Guys, good to see you all. Obviously, great week we've got here because we have the visitor, we have Coco. Welcome here. Thanks very much. We're super excited about the program. So we've got to just make sure that today goes smoothly because this is a setup day for the rest of the week. So guys, we're going to give Coco a bit of a view of the context to which we work. So we're going to go to the areas where the kids are coming from. We're going to go to where they are in the streets. We want to show you a bit of why the kids end up in the streets and what lifestyle is like there, what the surf club and the surf house, the work of surfers and street children is all about. We're going to meet at about 4 o'clock today. Is for the presentation? Does that work with everyone?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Amazing.
All right.
Cannot wait. But anyway, I just want to let you know that I'm really happy to be here with you guys. You know, for me, it's one of my biggest goals for this year to meet everyone here and to have a good time. You know, I want to know about you guys and share a little bit of my story with you guys and just have a good time. You know, that's what it's all about. Just have a good time and learn from each other. You know.
Yeah. In 1998, I was surfing and I was at the new pier and one of the kids came up to me and said, "Hey Tom, I want to surf." And I was like, "Oh wow." So I said to him, "Okay, jump off the pier." It was only a couple of feet, it wasn't big surf. And he jumped in, I put the leg rope on his foot and I pushed him into a wave. And all I could hear was him hooting like, "Yoo-hoo," all the way down the wave. It was so rad. And he didn't stand up, but he rode it on his stomach all the way to the beach. And he ran up the beach and back up the pier, jumped off and wanted to do it again and again. And it was then that I realized, wow, I'm crazy, I'm missing something. You know, I surf, I've been surfing all my life. Yeah, I'm so stoked from surfing and I'm running these programs for street kids. Why don't I bring surfing in as one of the programs? And that was the changing point. And we carried on as Durban Street Team for a long time. And in 2012, we renamed ourselves Surfers, Not Street Children. Surfers Not Street Children is an organisation that empowers street children and children living at risk of street connectedness in both Durban and Toffel in Mozambique. Living in the streets is really tough in Durban. There are an array of different situations that cause kids to go to the streets. So for example, problems at home. Something else has always happened in the lives of street children to push them to the streets. And it can range from neglect that they don't even really perceive to really serious abuse, involvement with gangs, all sorts of things. And you have a group of kids that end up in the streets. And if there's no one there to rescue them from the streets, they get caught up in street life. These areas, they go deep into the bush where people are literally just living in shacks the size of that. One of the other groups that we work with, particularly girls, that get caught up living in these shelters, so-called shelters. They're terrible places in the Point area of Durban. And maybe they're with a mother, but they're really struggling and they're such dangerous places. So, you know, a lot of our work is also involved with rescuing these girls and giving them safe places and helping them to readjust their lives so that they really have hope in their lives and a chance to have to be safe and to go on to be self-sustainable and independent. So this is the surf house, welcome.
Okay.
And up until now this has been where the guys have been living, transitioning their lives. So guys that literally had nowhere else. They were disconnected from their communities.
So this became their home.
This was their home.
It wasn't easy for me growing up on the streets with people that most you don't know in life, and by using drugs, overcoming the fear, and it was not a home, but for me it's like it was a new step, and getting to know people who's living on the streets. And we faced a lot of challenges in the nights when we're sleeping. It's like guys will come and bully you, they will come and like fight with you and pull your stuff away from you. And then for me it was not easy, and I realized even on girls also it was not an easy life to live in the street. So I used to use drugs to control my mind, but I knew at the end of the day drugs will never make me to reach my goals where I want to be. And like in a township where I was, it was like we're not like average or homeless, but we day and day we're struggling to get something to eat. So I thought I would find a better thing when I go in the streets, like to find jobs in the age of 8. But I was really not thinking too much, and I couldn't make it. And in the age of 8, without no parents, and whoever you can see in the streets, you call them mommy, daddy. It's like when you're begging, you're asking for 50 cents in the traffic lights. In the night you have to go buy something to eat and look for a place where it's safe for you to sleep. And I grew up in a tough life, you know, running away from dangerous guys in the night, you know, trying to protect yourself.
Double reminder, like, okay, look, the situation, you know what I mean? It's like, sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, like, you could be complaining like, oh, I have this or this, and then this. You know, remember, you know, when you come in and see situations like this, it's like, wow.
Is she like 4? 5 years. 5? Yeah, 11. 10? Wow. And then in 6 months, she comes to start this building that is going to be used.
Life in the streets is super tough for kids. All of the things that you can imagine do happen. So for example, when kids arrive there, it's really tough, and they tend to form groups on the streets for protection. But everybody has to do something to survive. Some beg, others get involved with prostitution, and most of the kids sniff glue to overcome the fear of the streets. And you know, they sniff glue all day sometimes, and this really damages them in the long run. And so 2 of the things that we find that we have to work with is both addiction to glue or to other drugs, and of course trauma. As many of the kids are raped in the streets, and so the trauma of the physical and sexual violence is just huge. Surfers Not Street Children uses a methodology whereby we fuse surfing with mentorship and psychosocial care. And the goal is to lead the kids and empower them from a life of hopelessness towards a life of self-sustainability and independence.
And for my first time I started knowing Tom Hewitt. It was 2008, yeah. 2008, I was like around 10 to 11, and he introduced me to surfing. From the first time he pulls us in, he told us, okay, this is a part of the house, we can share a living together. And then he told us, okay, what do we like in life, what we want to do, who you want to be when you grow up. So Tom really fights hard to bring us to surfing, you know, to show us the doors that if you use surfing, you can overcome the stress and you can overcome the drugs, and you can be someone in your life, you know. You can go out there and shine, and to know who you are, where you come from, you know. So we use surfing as a tool. I started surfing with Tom, and from my first day when I climbed in a board, I was like keep on falling down and trying to get up again. But I was quite scared, you know, like for me to be in a deep land, you know, like worried about sharks. And I started like paddling, learning how to swim. It was the first time for me to realize surfing, it does brings good things in your mind. When I took that wave, Tom pushed me. I remember he's pushing me behind, and then he really pushed me like I was gonna fall, but he told me, stand up, and like the way he was shouting at me, I was like, how? And I'm asking myself, but when I took my shoulders up and slowly I started riding the board, and I felt that love and the love of the ocean, and I was like, wow, I can actually surf. So surfing was like a key, because without surfing I was gonna be like nowhere, but in a living world, but I was gonna be lost, using drugs, you know, busy hanging around in the streets. And what I want to say, thanks Tom for like bringing the surfing to us, you know, because if like no one brought surfing to our lives, Tom gave me a second chance. He brought me close by again, and then he did a lot of things for me. And I knew if I don't pick up my socks this time, I was gonna go back to the streets. And I want to say thanks to Coco for sharing such an inspiring story. And a lot of kids, some of them they're living in a small environment, sharing they're sharing a home with the adults, you know. At least they got a shelter, but what we're looking for is for them to not go back to the streets and start using drugs. So what Coco shares to us, it inspires me and it inspires the kids. That shows that we all went through difficulties in life. There's no one who's perfect, you know. We all shared our moment. But to live in the streets sometimes is not easy, because you have to find yourself a food, no family around you. Only family that you see is people that who's helping you and people that who's trying to hate your life. But what Coco did in his life, I wish for the other kids to see.
I feel like identify with you guys a little bit with my story and with you guys in the situation what many of you have lived, you know. I used to live in the street in Mexico City when I was a kid. I left home when I was 10 years old. When I was in Mexico City, I had to learn how to live, how to survive. I did every job to survive. I saw many bad things in the street, and I have friends. I met guys who were sniffing glue, because that's the cheapest drug that you can find in the whole world, right? But when I was a kid, I knew that I wanted to be somebody in my life, and I knew that if I take the drugs, or if I go and sniffing blue or things like that, my life could be ruined. And I just want to say to you guys that anything you dream of is possible, and things don't come from one day to another. Things don't come from overnight. You have to be consistent and don't give up. To make your dreams come true, first of all, you need to have dreams. And you need to have faith. When you have faith and you have dreams, dreams become your motivation. And be the best version of yourself, to you and to others. Stay in the center of the board. You in the center? So you got a power board? So you got it.
It's been a fantastic journey of setting up this trip, and you know, he inspires the kids. The kids are blown away not only by his surfing, which is like unbelievable. I mean, you check some of his waves and it's like, it's insane. But at the same time, you know, his life story and his just his nature is just so cool. And you know, for the kids, it helps them to realize that, you know, not necessarily that they're going to be pro surfers, but they can go on to do to be sustainable in their lives, to be successful, and they just have to hold on to their dreams and be, as Coco says, the best version of themselves. So for us to have Coco here is just so rad.
It's been absolutely amazing. It's been inspiring for the kids, for me, for all of us, for the staff. Your generosity, your humility has been just unbelievable. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for also for the hospitality, for making me feel welcome, and really the way you welcome me and a couple of the days being next to me and with the kids. This is really bad that you leave it so soon, but I feel like I'm coming to
and we'll be seeing each other soon.
Looking forward to see you again. Let's keep talking.
Absolutely.
Let's have
Future projects.
future projects. We'll be talking to WhatsApp and all that.
Together we're stronger.
Yes, for sure. Okay. Okay. I want to get them to the coach. Yes.
Obrigado. Gracias.
Coco, Nocales, en la casa con el equipo, los chicos, Sudáfrica, vamos a entrenar, surfear, olas grandes, aquí en el vato, me gusta la música, hip hop, dale, te escuchamos, vamos hermano, sí, sudamericano, africano, sí, mexicano, con todo el ritmo caliente, vamos.
And on our behalf, I want to say we inspired whatever what you say to us. We're gonna use that as a key and show the kids that even when they fall, we are there to pick up the other socks and show them the way that they can make it in life, you know. And one day I want to see the kids play like Coco.
Njengoba ufike la kuyisibusiso kuthina nemvula iyakhombisa ukuthi uhambo lwakho luyimpumelelo ngoba
I have a lot of respect for Tom because and there's few people, like I say, in the world that, you know, that care about others. You know, like, I just want to give a clap to Tom. Yeah.